What does it take to get the truth? Does it take a fancy education? No. It takes a willingness to ask questions, to look underneath the few facts those in power choose to share with us. It takes bravery, because the truth is often dangerous and frightening. But bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's conviction in the face of it. My name is Parker Terrell, and this is The Plain Truth. Throughout my career, I have always been dedicated to rooting out the truth, but I'll be the first to admit that today's story tested my resolve. Is sharing this story worth the risk to myself and my livelihood? The risk to all the people who depend on me? The answer? A resounding yes. Nothing should stop the truth. A little over 60 years ago, a group of Hurston Dynamics employees came together to lobby for better working conditions. These workers were underpaid, overworked, and callously subjected to noxious, hazardous chemicals while on the job, with only the barest safety standards to protect them. They called themselves the United Workers of Hurston, or UWH for short, and bravely organized peaceful protest in an attempt to open dialogue with the Hurston executives. But these days, the UWH is better known as an extremist group. Their nobler aspirations have given way to campaigns of fear and intimidation, unfortunately. The group have claimed responsibility for numerous violent assaults on Hurston production facilities, several of which have even taken innocent lives. But when did everything change? Did they stray so far from their peaceful attempts at changing Hurston policy? And how did it happen? For many, myself included, the group's turning point can be defined by a single incident. Of course, I'm referring to the Lastal tragedy of 2937, when a group of UWH members violently seized control of a Hurston cargo transport. During the standoff with local authorities, they quickly paraded their hostages in front of the cameras broadcasting across the empire and made their grievances known. And to demonstrate their conviction, they flew over Lorville and pushed the pilot out of the ship, sending him plummeting to his death below. Shortly after, Hurston security forces executed a raid on the ship to retake control. All of the UWH members were killed, along with 3 more hostages. In the aftermath, public sentiment quickly turned against the UWH, and the Hurston Dynamics declared the group a terrorist organization. From heroes of the people to the most reviled group across the UEE. Just like that. Of course, UWH didn't disband. They simply went underground to avoid further persecution, and when the group would eventually emerge again from the shadows, violence became their calling card. Sure, certain factions within the organization continued to pursue more peaceful methods of protest, and attempted to distance themselves from the more militant cells, but the damage was done. Public opinion was firmly swayed against them. Like many others, I remember empathizing with the UEH. In their early days, megacorporations like Hurston can run roughshod over common folk with very few obstacles. I used to think it was brave of the UWH to stand in its way, to fight for better treatment. But after the seizure of the Lastal, I could not condone their actions. They were no longer brave, disgruntled workers suffering under the tyranny of the rich and corrupt. Just like you, I was convinced they were violent and dangerous criminals. That is what I believed. At least until a few months ago, when I received a comm from a Hurston employee. The contact chose to remain anonymous, identifying themselves on Spectrum only as Canary. And what they told me shook me to my core. According to them, Hurston had manipulated the UWH, intentionally driving the organization to violence in order to give the company the legal foothold needed to ban the group. It sounded crazy, but the case Canary made was damning. Although this was a bombshell, I still had questions. Who is this Canary? They clearly came to me for a reason. So why wouldn't they disclose their identity? Without that disclosure, without that level of trust, how could I identify and justify the very things I've learned? And yet, what if it was all true? I had to know the full story. Canary explained to me that once UWH started garnering support from other Hurston Dynamics employees across the verse, the board of directors started to get nervous. But it wasn't until the group's messaging began to inspire pressure for change outside the company that they realized the group's true danger. Such a large number of employees organizing would have a severe impact on their profits. Is it such a leap to assume that the company, as callous as Hurston, might take steps, even drastic ones, to protect their bottom line? I don't think so. Canary said, in a sort of preemptive retaliation, Hurston Dynamics began to target individuals it knew were part of the UWH and aggravate them, withholding pay, neglecting safety standards, and even being as petty as to saddle simple procedures with bureaucratic red tape. Even worse, Canary claimed that Hurston escalated its attacks by sending its own loyal agents undercover into the UWH to further radicalize the group from the inside. Canary claimed it was Hurston's own infiltrators that began to push the UWH to adopt more violent methods. Take a moment. Think about that. Think about the ramifications of it. Could this mean that Hurston Dynamics was ultimately responsible for the Lastal tragedy? If we believe Canary, then maybe the Empire owes UWH an apology of all things. How many of the people involved in the Lastal incident, I almost called it an incident, but it's truly a tragedy. And what if the actual members of the UWH were not responsible for this tragedy? How many were Hurston operatives, intentionally making the situation worse? If the company was willing to incite such violence back in those times, then what about today? Is Hurston letting the angry and violent factions of the UWH operate in order to fulfill some type of darker agenda? Could it be directing them, choosing UWH's targets for them, creating whatever narrative benefits most the company? Unfortunately, all these questions and more went unanswered. The investigation remained incomplete. I have not heard from Canary since our last conversation, and though they provided names, dates, and events that verified they were likely a Hurston employee, I never learned Canary's true identity. I realize that sharing this information may seem irresponsible and will likely paint a target on my back, but Canary was brave enough to contact me, and so I have chosen to be brave too. And I hope you will do the same. The more you share the truth, the harder it is to hide and cover up. When we come back, we'll explore Hurston's history with the UEE and its connections to senators across the verse who have a lot to answer for. That was a reading of The Plain Truth, Loreville Lies. This was a product created by the CIG lore team and read by Red J, me. I like to bat for the fences on these, so they get a little unique. The emotional spikes at the end were on purpose and supposed to be that he was losing, I guess, the narrative he was trying to present. He was getting excited, and the main character, Parker Terrell, was having this crisis of his emotions. And you got to think how much was on the line for him. In this character's role, he is plainly identifying himself, and he is now the top priority for Hurston Dynamics, to say the least. And if you don't already know, if you're new to Star Citizen, Hurston Dynamics owns Hurston. Literally owns it. They bought the rights to the planet and the moons around it. In fact, the moons are named after family members that have long since passed of the Hurston family. You can actually see their portraits inside Constantine Hurston's office in the CBD, the Central Business District of Hurston. They're up on the right-hand side when you go inside his office. But yeah, so check out Ida and the rest of them. It's actually pretty cool. So to say the least, Hurston has a lot of influence. You can also see their history inside the Central Business District, same location. Instead of hanging the left to go to Hurston's office, go straight ahead, past the massive, massive statue of the patriarch of Hurston family, and you'll see the history of the entire. Very fascinating stuff. If you made it this far, thank you very much. I really enjoy these lore videos and recreations, and I really enjoy embracing these. This was as far as I know, this was a new product that was not in an old jump point. So that's actually really nice. So thank you, CIG Lore team. More of this, and please start releasing more of the older stuff from those jump points that is locked away behind the subscriber vault, and especially when it's multiple years old. I've always maintained, I've been off and on a subscriber for years, and I've always maintained that I enjoy being a subscriber and seeing all the products made, and of course having the exclusivity of some of it, but eventually it should be freed up. I think as Canary and Parker Terrell would agree, for the people. So thank you all. I wish you all a great day or night when you're hearing this, and fly safe. Take care.